Alright guys, I thought I would do a couple of review from this review sheet to see if it would help you for the quiz. So here we go. I'm doing number 2 on the back of Mandatory 3 just to review that a little bit. So the position equation is x of t equals cosine squared of 5t minus sine squared of 5t. And if you remember, that is an identity. And you better remember because it's been since August. So this is double angle for cosine. So this is cosine of 10t, which is a heck of a lot easier to differentiate, to find the velocity, because in order to figure out when the particle is at rest, you have to figure out when the velocity is 0. So the velocity, remember, is the derivative of this position, and the derivative of cosine of any quantity is negative sine of that same quantity, so that's 10t, and then we have to multiply by 10. So the velocity equation is negative 10 sine of 10t. And in order to figure out when something is at rest, remember the automatic justification is that v is 0. So the velocity has to be 0 in order for something to be at rest. And so we're going to set this velocity equal to 0. Now, this negative 10, today when you were working on the group stuff, this negative 10 on the outside was giving you some issue. So remember, on the outside right here, it doesn't affect the solving of that equation. We're going to divide through by that. So if this number were something other than 0, I'd still have to divide this whole equation by negative 10. Since I'm dividing by negative 10, and there's a 0 on the other side, I'm still going to get the sine of 10t is equal to 0. So be careful though, if this number right here were something other than 0, you'd have to take this number, divide by that, and then deal with the new value right here. Alright, so remember what to do. You are looking at the interval from 0 to pi. So the interval in question here, t, is between and including 0 and pi. So all of the answers that we come up with in this section, the values of t have to be within 0 to pi. Alright, so the sine of the angle has to be 0. And the angles that give you 0 are 0, pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, la la la. So that means that this angle right here has to be equal to all of those. So you say 10t has to be 0, which means t has to be 0. Is 0 in that interval? It is, so that is a good solution. And then you keep going. 10t equals pi. Divide by 10, t is pi over 10. Is that value in that interval? It is. Keep going. 10t equals 2 pi. So t equals 2 pi over 10, or pi over 5. And that too is in that interval. As a matter of fact, if you keep going, you get 10t equals 3 pi, so 3 pi over 10 works, 4 pi over 10, 5 pi over 10, 6 pi over 10, 7 pi over 10, 8 pi over 10, 9 pi over 10, and 10 pi over 10 because that's pi. So you should have 11 answers. There should be 11 values of t. Oh, I can even draw a heart with this. That's pretty cool. So 11 values of t in that interval that would make that equal to 0. So the particle is at rest at 0, pi over 10, 2 pi over 10, and all those values of that same sort up to pi. All right, 11 answers. All right, I hope that helps.